Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of 18NTC, that's the Nonprofit Technology Conference. We're hosted by the Nonprofit Technology Network, coming to you from New Orleans at the Convention Center. This interview, like all our 18NTC interviews, is sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guests now are Oren Levine, Lisa Gessoff, and Emily Patterson. Oren is Director of Innovation at the International Center for Journalists. Lisa is Founder and Creative Director at Gizmo Creative Factory. And Emily Patterson is Founder at Bee Measure. That's B-E-E, like the insect. Welcome.
Hi, Tony.
Hello.
Pleasure. Your seminar topic is Gourmet Taste on a Pizza Budget, tackling a website redesign for small nonprofits. And I noticed that in your session description, you used the word small 3 times. That's perfect for nonprofit radio because our 12,000 listeners are in small and mid-sized nonprofits. So I don't have to admonish you or remind you even to tailor your comments to small and mid-sized orgs. I know I don't, because it's in your it's in your DNA. It's in the DNA of your workshop topic anyway. Let's not get carried away. Personal. Okay. What are the challenges? Let's start down there with Emily at the far end. What are the challenges with a website redesign?
Definitely, I compare website redesigns to doing laundry, at least at my house.
Okay.
That it's something where it feels like you put all this work into it, and then when you're done, whoa, there's a whole new basket of laundry, and you need to start all over again. You know, it's a project that it can take
Never
a year.
ends. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's, another year passes by and it's time to start redesigning your website all over again because technology and trends change so frequently. It's something you constantly have to keep up with.
What do you, part of what you described, you were going to talk, have you done your workshop yet or it's coming?
No, it's tomorrow at 1:30
Oh, so this is preparation for you. Okay.
Yep.
This is like that batting range or
Right.
the putting green. Not too much. I don't know. Look at me doing sports analogies. That was a mistake. I don't know anything about either of those sports, football or tennis. So, okay. What do you need? What do you need to have in place? Can we start with you, Lisa? Can you address that one? What do you need to let's not in place, but think about before you embark on hiring someone to do it or doing it in-house? What do you need to think about?
You really have to think about where your site is now and if it's working for you, and if you can tell if it's working for you, since we generally have analytics, but also, are you getting the results that you want out of it? Are your constituents getting what they need out of it? All of that kind of thing. And then it's just improving upon what you have, if it's content or design, usability, all of those things.
Okay. Oren, you want to add? We're at the pre-stage now. We're
Exactly,
thinking.
and this is in some ways where the small comes in because one of the things in your back of your mind is what resources do you have realistically to approach the project, which will probably be less resources than you would love to have, especially if you're looking at other websites and say, oh, I'd love to have a website like name your large corporation here.
Yeah.
And because you're a small nonprofit, you can't. And in addition to the questions Lisa was asking, one of the questions, in fact, you need to ask is, why do I have a website at all? It really gets down to what am I doing on the web? What's the purpose? Why do I want people to visit me on the web? Who's coming to visit? What do I want them to do when they get there? And by being really careful about asking those questions, that helps you match what you can do there to the limited budget you're going to have.
How do you overcome this? I'm going to stick with you, Oren. How do you overcome not knowing what it could do? It's not your site is not doing it now, but it could. But you don't know what it could do because you're not already exploiting that. How do you fill that gap, that knowledge gap?
Well, it's sort of a balance between what it's already doing, what it could do, and what you want it to do. And a lot of what we talked about in our own organization was trying to distill down of all of our laundry list, or back to the laundry analogy, a laundry list.
Emily's laundry basket, yes.
Wish list of all the things you wanted to do, or it could do, or it might do in an ideal world. It's really important to try to focus down on a few very, very critical things that you want the website to do and focus your efforts there. That both helps focus the minds of the people who are then responsible for the website, and then focusing your budget on a realistic set of goals you can achieve.
So you might brainstorm and then focus
Exactly.
to reality. Okay. Let's see about something else you pledged to cover in your workshops. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. Thinking about who to hire, whether you need who wants to take this one first? Whether you need expertise. We don't necessarily have to go in line. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. I don't like, but we can now. For now, anyway. It suits me for now, but I'll break it up if we keep up with this. Whether you should. A lot of small orgs probably do need help, right? They're going to need some technical help for this website project, yeah? Lisa?
Oh, definitely. And speaking as a designer and developer, generally I come in when they don't have those resources on staff, or if those people are overwhelmed. And speaking to Oren's point, sometimes you can brainstorm with those people and find out exactly new things that you may not be aware of, ways that you can integrate databases better, et cetera, and improve communication. So, so much of it is just what your resources are and what you're willing to put forth.
So you're often in the role of having to make the expectations fit the budget.
Yes.
We can't do that. Yes, I know you would love to, but if you want to do these other things that you said were the top 3 priorities, then we can't do this. We can't have 6 priorities.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in phased development, so if you can do it in 6 months, then we'll do it in 6 months when it's more feasible.
Okay. How do you message that reduction down to reality when you're talking to the CEO, executive director?
Oh gosh, I mean, I basically put it the exact same way, that we can do this in 6 months. We can still make it happen with the budget that you have. But if you want to put more towards it, then of course we can make plenty of things happen now.
Yes.
So.
Okay. All right. So bring it down to money.
Yes.
We have to spread it out. We can have it, but it's going to take longer. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things we talk about in this session is sort of tricks I learned.
It was Emily's turn.
Oh, sorry.
Didn't I make it clear?
You're
I'm
going
just
out
kidding.
of order.
No, I'm kidding.
Going out of order.
No.
I would say one point. I want to hand it over to Emily because she's really the expert on how to manage the CEO. So
That was
actually,
the host
maybe I
joke.
better let her speak to that.
No, I'm not going in sequence. No, I want you to continue.
Okay, my one question is that one of the now I've lost my train of thought.
Now I threw them all off. Great host. Emily, say something. Talk, Emily.
Along
What would
those
you like
lines?
to? Yeah. What would you like to
About
add to?
how to message to your CEO.
Yeah. Message, manage expectations up at the top level.
So I think one of the things that people don't realize, especially at the top level around website redesigns, is just how much work and thus time and money is involved. And I think having to message and set expectations around that is a big challenge. As in places that I've worked, and now in as a independent consultant, my point of contact is typically your marketing director or your communications person who handles all of communications and all of fundraising. So kind of a mid-level person, and being able to work with them to help them set expectations with their boss around the website. Because I think a lot of executive directors, they're a little bit detached from the project, and they're looking online and they're seeing all of this awesome stuff that other organizations or even for-profit companies are able to do, and they don't realize how much time and money needs to go into that.
I want to pick up on Emily's point that I'm in the position of being the nonprofit that's working with companies who are designing the website, and one of the things we tried to make sure of is we knew internally in our own organization who is responsible to make the final decision. So that if Emily's talking to the communications director, she needs to know that when the communications director says we're not going to do this, then her boss is not going to come down 2 weeks later and say, well, actually we are. Let's get that anyway, because that's how you lead to basically blowing your budget and changing your plans. So it's very important as an organization, as a nonprofit taking on the project, to be clear in advance who are the decision makers, who are the real stakeholders, who is going to make the decisions, and who needs to stay out of the way.
That's perfect. So who should be? Let's go to you, Emily. Who should be part of this redesign team?
I mean, I think having one clear person who is ultimately
one
the decision.
person is in charge.
Yes. Having been in the position where, three people are making the decision, that doesn't really work. So ultimately, one person has to have the final say so. We are or we are not doing this. But I think lots of people should be involved and be able to have their input, because you will otherwise get in this situation where...
What Oren just described, 6 months later, well, I didn't have... How did we get this? Well,
yes,
and
that can definitely derail your project if all of a sudden you have someone pop up and say, hey, what happened to XYZ? I thought we were doing this. And then as a consultant, you have to be the person who says, oh, sorry, that's not in the budget.
Yeah,
I think it's...
So we need to think through in the beginning stages who are the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So, but our website affects everybody, Lisa. Mm-hmm. How do we decide who's... and we can't have too many people in the process. We've already said that. How do we decide who should be part of this process and who should be sidelined?
A big part of that for me is design theory too. It's basically starting off with talking to all of the people who are going to be using the site. So if it's one person from the board, one person from the staff, one actual end user, etc., and they don't necessarily have to be people who are involved in the decision-making part of it, but finding out how they actually use the site and how they would like to use the site and how it all fits into the overall organization makes a huge difference in the end result and how successful it is.
Okay. Oren, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, and that's another reason why inside the organization it helps to have somebody who can sort of manage some of those relationships internally and in some ways be a bridge between the organization and the external party. I in some ways fulfill that role in my organization. I'm not responsible for the site, and partially because I have experience as a web product manager. I'm able to, in some ways, mediate, I suppose, between some of the internal forces and tensions and our external vendors, and that makes life easier for them because they have fewer people to talk to and more clear decision making. Yeah. It makes life easier for us in that we're able to resolve some of our issues ideally before we start having to pay for things.
Let's go into more detail on this, on managing the contractors, or contractor or whatever, that is doing the process. Emily, you got something you want?
I was going to say that I think having your communications director or someone at that level lead the project is a good call, because they're in a role where they can both understand more closely like the technical side of what will need to go into this, because they're close enough to the project where they might be in a role where they're updating the website. But then they're also removed a little bit from IT and more into the business side of things, where they can understand the bigger picture and the business decisions and the important role that stakeholders play, where I think if you put the website in the IT department and have that management come from that side, they might spend more time kind of focused on how is everything working exactly and ignore the business side of it.
More on into the code. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk more about managing the contractor that's doing this project for us. Lisa, how do you like to be managed? No,
I don't like to be managed, but
right.
Well, essentially the biggest thing is always communication on both ends of it and setting expectations. Some people love to talk only via email. Some are, I need to get on the phone with you to make you understand this. And it's an intergenerational thing. It's everybody certainly has different feelings on that. But setting up expectations of how often we're going to talk, how we're going to talk, how we're going to be managing all of these assets, all of these things, that makes things so much easier down the line, and you don't have developers who disappear or gaps in knowledge where, well, we have no idea where we're hosted right now, which is a huge deal because so many people don't really know all their passwords and everything. So,
let's move to something else that you are going to cover tomorrow. Use of data to drive better flows and better engagement. Who's everybody points
That's
to Emily.
Me.
All right, Emily, you got two thumbs pointing to you. Yes.
Yeah, that's the data portion of it is really my specialty.
Okay.
So we're going to talk a little bit about, well, the stakeholder, they roped me in for the stakeholder section because I had this other presentation that Oren saw where it was about using data to kind of manage people's personalities. But definitely,
Using data to manage personalities. That was a different. That was somewhere else.
yeah, is at another
Oh,
conference.
that was an interesting one. Okay.
About how you can take the data that you collect and then use it to appease the different sort of questions and issues that pop up with your different stakeholders.
All right.
But definitely before you embark in your redesign, I had some suggestions about what sorts of data people should look at. A lot of it depends on what sorts of issues pop up with your various people who are involved. I really kind of feel like there's kind of three basic types of issues that will happen. There's the sort of person who doesn't, you might have it from your executive director or from another person in your organization. They don't necessarily want to spend any money. So helping to make the case that we need to make this investment and we need to invest in better technology. You can use your Google Analytics, user testing, surveys, a variety of different things to get a good picture of what's going on with your audience. Because who's using your website is not necessarily reflecting the needs of the person using your website isn't reflecting the needs of the people in your audience. They're not in your office. They're not the same.
Okay. What else about data?
So you also get the person who has all the fun ideas, maybe reads a lot of things online about the latest trends and we need to have this widget and that widget, and helping them get a good perspective on what's really going on with our users, where are we really having problems with our site right now that definitely need to be fixed in the redesign.
Yes.
You can use Google Analytics, things like they have a funnel feature to see where in your processes you're losing people.
People are dropping out, leaving your site. Yeah.
And then I love surveys and user testing as a way to hear from real people how frustrating it is for them to use certain functions on your website.
So who would you send those surveys to? Is that all cut across all your constituents? I mean, donors, board members, people who are engaged with your programs, receiving your services, all those people get a survey like that?
It depends. I've done ones on the website, which I think are nice. Google has a very low-cost pop-up sort of survey. You may have seen them before, that you can answer a couple questions, and then there's typically kind of an open-end response, which is a great source for people's rants.
Okay.
About how
What
frustrating
kinds of questions do we ask?
You can certainly ask about user roles if it's important for you and your website to understand who's
Okay. What constituency, you would word it this way, but what constituency they fit into? Are we delivering services, et cetera? Okay. What else do you want to find out?
So that's one, but you can totally keep it super simple and just ask something like, what brings you to the site today? Are you satisfied with your experience? If not, what recommendations do you have for us? Those three questions, I think, will get you a good picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've had guests on who say the best survey is like 5 or fewer questions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? So short is not problematic at all. I mean, it's preferred.
Yeah, especially if you're you're popping up at them. They're coming to your site because they're trying to do something else. So you want to keep the survey short because you're kind of interrupting their experience.
What else can we talk about around this? You're gonna fill 90 minutes tomorrow.
Well, let me add another more point about data.
Oh, please, yeah.
Again, I'm coming at this from the perspective
Pointed at
of
Emily, so I thought the data. I thought when Emily stopped.
That's
when
okay.
Emily,
Or you
I
can
feel-
talk about data
When
too.
Emily took a breath, I thought that was the end of the data conversation.
No,
Oh
I'm
no, I could talk for
Please.
days about data. But
And
All right.
has-
I'm glad you
and-
took a breath.
and
Thank
plenty
you,
to
thank you,
talk
thank you.
about.
Okay.
Just the one small point I wanted to make, again, back to managing expectations. It's a way to also manage expectations your stakeholders had about people who are wedded to, we've always had this section on the website. I love this information. It's valuable, and it's useful to be able to go to analytics data and say, 20 people have visited this page in the last 5 years. We don't need it.
Okay. Dispel myths.
It's also-
legacy pages that people are tied to strongly, but nobody else cares. Yeah. Go ahead, Lisa.
It's also testing out processes too, like how long does it take someone to actually make a donation or to find the volunteer form or something like that? Does it take too long for them to get there and they get tired of it and they just leave? Or does the executive director have an idea that they love this particular feature, but no one's clicking on it, or they want to axe it, and actually everyone's clicking on it, and we don't know that unless we actually get true user data. So it helps in a lot of scenarios.
All right, I mean, you base it in reality.
Yep.
The numbers don't lie. Yeah, all right. Okay, so we still have, we still got 5 or 6 minutes together. What else can we talk about on this topic? Website redesign. You promised a step-by-step guide. Have we missed any steps?
Oh, there's plenty of steps in between.
All right, so name some things we haven't talked about.
Content auditing of your current site.
Okay,
So
actually, I'm going to cut you off there because like 3 or 4 sessions ago, we talked about content audit.
all right.
Name another one. Name another step.
Oh gosh.
What else is going on that
now
we
I'm
haven't-
blanking on it.
that we haven't talked
You have a
about?
lot of sessions, Lisa, about sort of post-launch care and the whole.
Yeah, because to me, kind of the laundry analogy too, but to me, a website is a living, breathing thing. And just because you're done with it, because it launched, does not mean that it is done. You need to keep feeding that for Google to pay attention to and for your users to pay attention to
You
it.
also need to be aware of the ongoing costs of maintaining the site, right?
Yeah, and keeping it secure.
Yeah.
And
Oren,
also,
do you have a laundry analogy? You want to bring laundry into this?
maybe not a
You
laundry
haven't talked about
analogy.
your laundry yet.
I'm thinking more about sort of laundry all of a sudden, gets created out of nowhere in your hamper because what happens is part of the consequence, if you've been really successful, I think, in managing expectations and limiting the scope of your redesign and coming up with a very clean site, that means there are going to be items that fell off the must-have list that are now on the might-have list or nice-to-have list. But after launch, that's an opportunity to sort of incrementally add in some of the things you may have wanted to do earlier as budget becomes available. So that's part of what Lisa was saying about it's an ongoing project, not only maintenance, but ongoing improvement. I remember when I used to work at a large nonprofit before, people with sort of a background in television programming would say, they keep asking, when's the website done? And I think, as Lisa mentioned at the beginning of our talk, it's never done. It's an ongoing project.
Iterative. Yeah. Lisa, do you see, or Emily also, commonalities around things that people want but don't really need? Or, any generalities about things that they say is a top priority but really it's not? Does any generalizations you can make around that?
How about homepage sliders?
I was just thinking that.
There we go.
They're the worst
Everybody
thing
needs
ever.
a
You say
homepage
it.
slider.
Everybody loves those big sliders, right?
No one clicks on them. They really
People don't.
No.
They don't stop it to go back.
As
or they don't
somebody
go
who
back
has
to them,
tracked
or-
many homepage sliders, yes. They get to slide 2, I think. Yeah, and they.
And then they go to what they really want. Okay.
I think people, maybe this is, Lisa has different impressions, but I think there's just too much emphasis and too many politics around the homepage and what goes on the homepage, because most sites, people are coming in sideways. You get a lot of people coming in from search, especially if your site is well designed and has all the SEO best practices. People will come in to your blog posts or to your content pages, and they'll never see your homepage.
Yeah.
And so I in projects I've been involved with, the homepage gets very political and can stall things.
Okay, and that's
People-
old thinking that everybody's coming directly to our main domain. And, yeah.
And everybody wants a piece of it.
Yes. There's a lot of fighting about.
Okay, so
Oh,
you
well.
are generalizing about things. Okay, there are generalizations.
I was going to bring this up before,
commonalities.
but yeah, there's a lot of my department needs to go on the homepage. This is very important. I'm very important to this organization.
All right. What else can we flesh out a little bit more? Still got another couple minutes left.
Well, one thing is, I was going to advise, I came up with a bunch of sort of tips and tricks if you're inside the organization, sort of ways to keep your stakeholders, I was going to use the word under control, but that's a bit of a loaded term. But back to the prioritization, prioritization is really critical in making those choices about what you want to do.
Yes.
And there have been lots of cases in several projects I've worked on when your stakeholders might have a long list of things they want to do, and as somebody who's running a project, it's really important to learn how to say, pick one. Really focuses the mind nicely. Or you're not going to need that. Or that sort of thing to really help sort of focus the issue.
Everybody gets one.
Right.
You could name as many as you like, but you're going to get one priority. Okay.
Yeah, I've in talking to clients, I used to say to people, we can do this, or we can do this. And the response was, well, can we do both? So I've learned to rephrase it and say, here are 3 options. Pick one.
Okay. Okay. Let me ask, what do you, Lisa, what do you love about the work that you do?
Organizations I work with and companies, they're so wide-ranging that it always amazes me what you can learn and what you can pick up and all of the commonalities of them too. There are so many things that they're all trying to get across, even if they're a tiny little organization. So it's and making a difference with it, with the actual end product from what they had.
How about you, Oren? What do you love about this work?
I think what's really interesting about the work is when you're setting off on a website redesign, you think you're doing a technology project, and it almost inevitably ends up being a management project. Because I think we've alluded to it before, that the company's, an organization's website is really related to how the organization works. And you end up sometimes having more conversations about how the organization works and how we're running and what are our strategies
Than about the technology.
than about the actual technology itself.
Some introspection. Okay, Emily, I'm going to give you 10 or 15 seconds. What do you like? What do you love about this work? Your work.
About the work that I do?
Yeah.
I mean, I like that it's always changing. I specialize in, data stuff, and it's a field that's constantly evolving, so I like that aspect of being able to keep up on it and always be learning.
Just like our websites.
Yep.
Constantly evolving, always changing, never finished. All right. They're Oren Levine, Director of Innovation at the International Center for Journalists. Lisa Gessoff,
Yes.
Founder and Creative Director at Gizmo Creative Factory, and Emily Patterson, Founder of B Measure. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
This interview, like all of them, here at 18NTC, sponsored by Network for Good, easy to use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. Thanks so much for being with Nonprofit Radio coverage of the 2018 Nonprofit Technology Conference.